1. I live in an unincorporated community near a major city in the northeast US. This happened about 6 months ago, coming home from work. I have an oddball job that has me traveling all over the place, and has me out all hours of the night. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the job, but some of the places we go to are in less than desirable areas. The place I worked in that night was in the major city I mentioned. I was with my friend, who at the time was working with me. My parents picked us both up, as my mom had a job interview the next day and wanted to get a good idea on where it was located. So we're coming down the street next to where the building is that my mom is looking for, and a car starts coming out of a side street. Where we were, if this guy actually would have pulled all the way out, this would have been an accident. So my dad honks at his car, to which the guy lays on his own. They were clearly at fault, so I could sense that this was going to be one of those road rage deals. After we get done checking the building out, we're about to exit the parking lot when we see a car come behind us. We think this is odd, as it's about 1 a.m. When the car comes up next to us, we notice it was the same car from before. Great. I've seen too many horror movies not to know what happens next. The driver rolls down her window, and we notice that there are 4 people in the car. 2 girls in the front, 2 guys in the back. They were probably all in their early 20s, so you know there's going to be some immaturity there. My dad rolls down his window and yells, "What the fuck is your problem?" The guy in the back on my side hollers right back, and I don't remember the entire conversation, but there were a lot of obscene and racist comments, and to be honest, I was horrified. My mom and I remain quiet, as we both hate confrontation. But my friend Riley, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of me. They are all screaming and yelling at this point, so the rest of this encounter is a bit hazy. My dad has finally had enough and pulls off. As we're actually leaving the parking lot this time, the other car speeds past us and is honking furiously while flashing their lights. We get to the stoplight, and we're about to make our turn. We're in the right lane and they're in the left. I turn around and see them doing a 180, and now they're heading our way. Oh shit. At this point, I knew they were following us. They stayed in the lane next to us for a minute. As we're coming up to the stoplight before the one that goes into my neighborhood, we yet again have another screaming match with them. The guy in the back calls my friend ugly, and I was about ready to hop out of my car and bash their windows in, but as there were cars coming up behind us, and we were probably getting looks, this encounter was cut short, and we all hauled ass out of there. And now we're coming up to the light that goes into my neighborhood, and we were dropping Riley off before we headed home. Riley lives in the apartment complex that's across the street where I live, and it's a gated community, so you would either need a car to get in if you lived there, or you needed an address of the person you were visiting. I wasn't keen on taking chances, as I knew this was a major apartment complex in my community, so the people following us could very well have known someone there. So I told the woman at the gate that we were being followed, and not to let that car in if they tried to come through. She said she would keep an eye out, and then we were on our way. I kept insisting that the car would be there when we came out, waiting for us, but my dad, being as nonchalant as he possibly could, thought my mom and I were fussing for no reason, and refused to believe us. Well, we dropped my friend off, and as we're coming out of the complex, lo and behold, the car passes right by us. Shit. Now I know what you're probably thinking. It's dark out. How could you possibly know it was the same car? Well, the car stuck out like a sore thumb, because it was a really bright green, and it was one of those box cars. You could spot that thing a mile away. I kept telling my dad not to go home because then these people would know where we live. He starts an argument with my mom and I, how it was already late and he needed to be up early in the morning. He didn't have time for foolish games, blah blah blah. but he still starts to head towards home anyway. As we're going down the street, I spot the car going down the street right next to us. And as we turn on our street, they're following close behind with their headlights off. Damn it. We go past our house, my mom and I getting frantic, wondering how long this will continue for. Since that car turned their lights off, I couldn't see where they went. But then I noticed them pulling over on a side street a ways back, and just sit there for God knows how long. My mom is calling the police and I'm shaking. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but the car speeds down the road and hits their brakes hard until they're right next to us. They roll down their windows and my dad does as well. And then my dad gets out of the car. I knew he was asking for trouble then. They're screaming their heads off at each other. They're threatening us. My dad is threatening them. But my mom was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher, and they could hear the screaming, which is good. At some point, a white car had come down the road and pulled in front of us. I figured that they had just lived at the house we were double parked in front of, and that we took his space. Well, that was until he backed up to our bumper. Then I knew that he was with the other car. They never did anything but block us in. My dad finally told them that my mom was on the phone with the police, but they didn't believe us until they saw that she was actually on the phone, I guess. The two cars peeled off, and that was the last we saw of them. When the police came, not 5 minutes later, he said he would patrol the area and our alleyway to see if they were waiting for us anywhere. The nice cop actually sat in his car until we got in our house, to make sure we were all right. As my parents and I were talking later, we figured these kids were probably high and that's why they finally took off. But to you psycho asshole kids who had nothing better to do than ruin my night, let's not ever meet again. And I won't play nice next time either. I'm still terrified of being followed home. 2. This experience was pretty unsettling and nerve-wracking for me and my girlfriend. We're both 21 and 23-year-old girls. It happened around a month ago. I'm gonna start off by saying neither me nor my girlfriend scare easily. My girlfriend has seen some shit in her life that current shit barely faces her. And I have some experience as a combat soldier, and lived all my life in a somewhat constant war zone. I know I can get overly paranoid, and I tend to confuse intuitive, real gut feelings with plain paranoia. So I might have made decisions in this story that would make me look like an utter tard against my better judgment. My girlfriend lives in the US, and I flew there to see her and spend time with her. I'm from Israel. She lives in a big house with 5 roommates. Most are pretty chill, the exception being the house owner. The owner continuously refused to turn on the AC, even during the heat wave, when temp was up to 100 plus, and it was basically fucking Mount Doom inside out. The house was, and still is, also in pretty bad shape. Filthy, old, shit ton of insects, etc. Not a nice place to live in, so, after getting into a heated argument with the owner about the AC, she decided she had enough and we embarked on a journey to find a new place. I went on Craigslist and started looking for fairly cheap apartments. I stumbled upon an odd ad that matched the price we were looking for and had some decent pics of the house. It was very roomy, clean, with cable TV, Wi-Fi, a backyard, massive garage, an indoor gym, and, most importantly, an AC. The ad was seemingly written by a girl. I assume so because the word boyfriend was mentioned at least 3 times, and was not signed by any name. The ad itself was a bit odd. The girl mentioning the room was very popular, and she received many inquiries about it, even though she posted this ad multiple times in the past month. Some words and some sentences were furiously caps locked, and it just overall felt like a bitchy way to write an ad. Another thing was the price. It seemed too good to be true that a room in a house like that, with so many features, would have such a low price for it, considering the room prices in the market at the time, and that no one took it up for an entire month. Oh well, we were desperate. I ran it through my girlfriend. We looked up the neighborhood, and decided to send said girl a text, as she mentioned several times she won't accept any other form of communication. Girlfriend was still pretty pissed off about the entire ordeal with the house owner, so I decided to pretend to be my girlfriend and use my prepaid phone to text with girl. Legit the smartest thing I ever did, we'd soon learn. I texted girl, again pretending to be my girlfriend, and after going through an interrogation, ranging from where do we currently live, what's her source of income, the exact number of cash she gets a month, info about current family members, any mental illnesses, etc., the girl texted us the exact address and told us to come by. Throughout our conversation, I finally learned girl's name, Alan. No, I watched enough foreign TV to know Alan is not usually a girl's name. That feeling of suspicion I was getting grew stronger. But then I thought to myself, Alan could just be a gay man living with his boyfriend. It is America after all. And girlfriend reassured me that's probably the case. Other than the girl being actually Alan, the questions were off-putting and Alan's way of writing gave me pretty weird vibes. But I brushed it off thinking I'm just not used to this sort of stuff because it doesn't happen in my country. And that's probably just how things work here. So me and my girlfriend set up a date with Alan and off we went. Alan's neighborhood seemed quiet. A traditional suburban neighborhood with homes lined up parallel to the street. Alan's house had a decently sized front yard, surrounded by a fence with a warning dog and neighborhood watch signs. The latter was sort of reassuring. Neighborhood watch people are supposed to be the good guys, right? We parked by the house next to Alan's and I texted him we're outside, in front of his house. No, you're not. Okay, I texted him again, saying we definitely are. The blinds on all of his windows were completely shut, which again made me grow more suspicious. I saw a man opening a small gap in the blinds. Moments later, he texted us. I see you now. Dude, what? That just creeped us the fuck out. Just come out and greet us like a normal person. Jeez. Open the gate and come inside. Again, why wouldn't he just come out? We're two skinny 5'4", 5'7" girls, standing 10 plus meters away from the entrance. I was thoroughly creeped out, but girlfriend brushed it off, so I just assumed Americans are fucking rude. Nope, it was just Alan. We proceeded to try opening the gate door. It had a weird angle to it, and we were having trouble opening it from the outside. I texted Alan and asked for him to just come out and open the gate for us, to which he replied, "Just twist the damn thing." Dude. We finally got the gate open and walked towards the door. He finally came out. Alan was a little bit taller than us, but incredibly buff. He greeted us and invited us to the living room to talk. The conversation was super fucking weird. He was asking extremely personal questions, like why my girlfriend has the mental illnesses she has. How did her family react to this and that? How many girls she slept with? Was she ever raped, etc. Alan overshared info about himself as well. But all of his stories seemed extremely exaggerated and out of this world. Like he'd tell us how he lived with a mother, her morbidly obese child, and a convicted felon. How said convicted felon had exactly 13 bullet holes, and how he threatened him. Overall, stories that sounded like exquisite bullshit. My girlfriend, being the sympathetic and empathetic person she is, kept talking and sharing with Alan. I, on the other hand, grew more and more suspicious. my suspicion has peaked when Alan told us he wrote his ad as a girl, as an experiment, to see if he could lure more people to see the house. His words. And said he lives with his girlfriend who wasn't home at the moment and with 2 other people, who were conveniently also out. The house was dead empty. Moreover, he wouldn't stop texting someone and looking stuff up on his phone the entire time. He also casually said he always researches his tenants. Whatever that means, I was not liking it one bit. I was staring at Alan during the entire 2-hour-long conversation. During this time, he hasn't looked at me once, nor spoke to me. Asked me 0 questions. Which I found peculiar, since I'm going to be staying in that house too, even if not for long. I think Alan noticed me staring him down because he abruptly cut the conversation and offered us a house tour. During the house tour, Alan was complaining about one tenant he evicted last week, claiming it was because he wouldn't stop hogging the kitchen to watch TV. Now, the TV was positioned in such a way it'd be impossible to watch it in the angle he was demonstrating. He just got weirder and weirder the more doubting looks I shot at him. He somehow got to talking about his dog, and he made it a point how he takes his dog to a groomer every week to massage his fucking anal glands. Yeah. The weirdest part though was the garage. You see, the garage was locked. Alan quickly went to fetch the key, opened the door, and gestured us to get in first. I really didn't want to. My gut feeling was super fucking angry at me for even being around the guy, but I kept brushing it off as paranoia. The garage is big, has a fancy car in it, and plenty of tools. There was also a locked room in it. Alan claimed it was a bathroom. As soon as we turned around to leave, we saw, I shit you not, a 9-inch dildo on a chair next to the entrance to the garage. We didn't notice it when we entered because of the angle of the chair. A fucking dildo in the garage. I'm screaming inside, thinking this dude is fucking batshit. Did he seriously, innocently forget a dildo in his garage, knowing he's having people over? Was this connected to that locked, tiny room? I had 1,000 scenarios run through my brain connecting the dildo to that shady room. I'm sure you can guess the nature of them. He saw the dildo and apologized, only to start talking about his sex life later in our tour wrap-up conversation, explaining his extensive curiosity with us with, you never know who you're gonna live with. It could be a serial killer, a rapist, a pedophile. Again, I was going mental in my head. Who says something like that to potential tenants? I remained completely calm on the outside, and tried hinting at my girlfriend we should leave, but Alan wouldn't shut up. At one point in the convo, he decided to turn off the lights in the living room, which made the house pretty fucking dark, closed blinds and all. I was ready to nope the fuck out of there at this point. Throughout this convo again, Alan did not look at me nor spoke to me, and was continuously texting someone. In my head, any minute now some dudes were going to appear behind us, and drag us to that fucking room in the garage. I was in complete ultra-awareness mode. When Alan had enough of our company, he abruptly ended his conversation with my girlfriend and told us to leave because he has another person coming to see the house. Fucking finally! As soon as we got in the car, me and my girlfriend discussed how utterly fucking weird that guy was. She was way less disturbed than I was. But then again, his and her backstory matched, and she felt more sympathetic to him. I'm sure he did that on purpose, inventing wild stories as they talked, and didn't notice all the weird shit in his stories or the small little things he said or did. I didn't want to worry her too much, so I let go of it. And we went on grocery shopping, while she hoped that the guy liked her enough to take her in as a tenant. I wished for the opposite. Now, if that experience wasn't fucking creepy enough, around 10 minutes after leaving the house, Alan texted me. thinking he's talking to my girlfriend. Did you like the house? Sorry about the dildo, it's my girlfriend's. He kept texting me the entire drive home, which was about 30 minutes. Did your girlfriend like it here? Show me pics of your dog, my girlfriend wants to see. And more prying questions. He kept texting me the entire day. The entire day. Mostly about how connected he feels to my girlfriend and how he wishes his girlfriend would like her so she could come live with them. Creepy Alan did not cease to be creepy until 2 days later. Still texting me even after he had told us his girlfriend doesn't want us in the house, which happened on the same day of the visit, mind you, because she didn't like her dog's breed, a big cuddly Doberman. The last group of texts were extremely creepy. Me and my girlfriend are polyamorous. We met at a threesome. And the creme de la creme. I must confess, I am really attracted to you. Is that weird? Yeah, it's fucking weird. Thanks, but no thanks. That didn't sit well with Alan, who continued to send more messages, talking about mundane shit as if nothing happened. I ignored said texts, and he eventually disappeared. Needless to say, my girlfriend was pretty damn disturbed hearing about Alan's forbidden love towards her, and decided not to look at any other places for the time being. My prepaid phone plan ends in 2 weeks, and creepy Alan won't have any way to contact or find my girlfriend when I'm gone. I guess what terrified me in this experience was mistaking a real, legit, uncomfortable bad gut feeling with paranoia. Being in that creep's house, the tiny room in the garage, and his infatuation with my girlfriend. She was mostly disturbed by the latter. So, creepy Alan, I hope we never ever meet again. 3. I will be completely honest here, and I'm not trying to brag, but growing up, I was a pretty girl, and liked by many. I just had a friendly demeanor paired with a symmetrical face. So I'd say growing up, I was pretty happy and sociable. That led to me having lots of friends and some admirers. One of my friends through my schooling, Samara, really seemed to almost idolize me. I'm a person, not a goddess. I've done dumb things. It made me a little uncomfortable that Samara always wanted to take pictures of me, or hang out with me all the time. I just marked it down to her wanting to fit in with us, so we were all nice to her. But after high school, I let our connection drift apart. I blamed it on me leaving the state for college. So after college, when I was 23, I came back to the town I grew up in. I asked around to track down all the old gang, just to reconnect, and see where everyone had gone in life. I was told by Samara's cousin, who was a good friend to my older sisters, that after I moved away, Samara cut off everyone and left state. The last they knew of her, she moved about a state over from us to this smallish town. Okay, this is where it gets a little weird. A few months after my visit, having put Samara out of my mind, I had to travel to this town for work. I'd be staying for a little while. So I walked around to sort of get a feel for the place. I was walking down the main, sort of shopping street, when a man stopped me, saying something like the following: "Hey Beatrice, nice day." I completely froze, just stopped right there. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I spouted some sort of confused, "Oh, you must have the wrong woman." The man stared at me for a good minute. He nodded and told me he was sorry, that I looked just like a woman he worked with. Though he explained that now that he could see me better, there were some key differences like eye color, hair length, etc. Out of curiosity, I asked where he worked. I read that everyone has around 7 similar-looking people in the world. I thought it'd be funny to meet my clone. He told me he worked at a bookstore around the corner. I told him to have a good day. What I found funny about the whole situation was that I used to call myself Beatrice in middle school. I had this fascination with the Beatrice mentioned in the series of unfortunate events. I was like 13 and wanted to be mysterious and beautiful, like how I imagined Beatrice to be. You know, in the dedications the author writes, to Beatrice, darling, dearest, dead. I got over it in high school. So anyways, I went to my hotel and sort of thought about it. The day after, I went to check out the bookstore. Behind the register, this girl was sorting out some things, pretty focused on her task. From what I could see out on the street, she looked like she could be my twin sister. I opened the shop door and the bell rang, and she looked up and the most panicked look went on her face. She pretty much bolted to the back room. I figured probably she was just startled, having just seen someone who looks like her but slightly different. So I hung around the shelves, browsed a bit, while I waited for her to come back. She eventually did come back. She kept her head bent down, just occasionally staring at me. Every time I went to make eye contact, she busied herself with something else. One thing I noticed was that her hair was artificially ginger. Real redheads can always spot a fake, you know? This was fake. She was also missing a lot of the freckles I had, but her nose was the same shape as mine, her eyebrows done the same way, her lips a similar shape to mine. Her eyes were blue instead of brown like mine, but my God, this looked like she could be my sister. She was just a little too short, and a little skinnier than me. I began to feel creepy just staring at this poor freaked out girl, so I left. When I got back to my own state, I told my boyfriend all about this trip and the girl who looked like me. This was all put out of mind until like a month ago. I got an email from my sister saying that Samara had just contacted her family for the first time in ages, and asked about what I was doing. I was going to post a screenshot of the email, but I'll just copy and paste it here so it's less effort. Lavender, first of all, Mom says you need to call more. Got a weird story. Your friend Sam just called Brianna, and she was asking about you. Think she still has a crush on you. Anyway, told her how you were, that you were thinking about her too. Couldn't get her to come visit, but whatever. Told her about Patrick, by the way, so she knows you're spoken for. The email just continues on to talk about life and stuff. I sort of brushed it off. Told my sister she could pass on my Facebook or email to Sam if she wanted to get in touch again. After all, I thought maybe she'd finally grown up and found her own identity. So, not too long after, like 3 weeks ago, Patrick, my now fiancé, came home from work and looked out the window. I asked him what was up, and he said he thought someone was following him home in their car, but they seemed to have gone on down the road. I just kept working on my draft, and we talked about our days. We went out with friends that evening, and upon arriving home, our front window was open. We don't leave it open often, but it was summer at the time, so maybe we did forget we left it open. Usually neither of us is that careless. Looking through the house, there was nothing missing, so I had no reason to get worried. After all, my expensive laptop was right on the desk and left untouched. Why break in if you won't steal things, right? Right? The day after that, Patrick came home all freaked out. He said when he was out shopping for food, some girl who looked just like me went up and started calling him Monkey and trying to kiss him. I call him Monkey. That's my thing that I do, and no one else does. She was wearing a shirt similar to one I owned. When I checked the laundry, it was gone. We tore the house apart and discovered that my shirt, a sweater, and some of my underwear, seriously the expensive Victoria's Secret kind, were missing. We had no idea what to do. We still don't. I've contacted my family, Samara's cousin. I even sent an email to the bookstore found it on Google, asking if Beatrice had been to work. I am terrified. Truly, very much terrified. This was 3 weeks ago and nothing else has happened. The bookstore owner told me he can't tell me anything about Beatrice because that could be a breach of her safety. Brianna hasn't heard anything from Samara. My sister is begging me and Patrick to move out because Samara's probably all kinds of crazy. Patrick also doesn't think it's serious enough to move out. Plus, we probably can't afford that. and we like our little house. If it gets any crazier, I promise we will call the police. Edit. So Patrick and I did end up going to the police today. We described the whole situation, and there's not a lot they can do for now. We can't prove anything or even get a positive ID on the woman, and who knows if it's even really Samara. So we'll wait and see. Patrick set up a camera on our front lawn. No other odd happenings. Maybe she's been scared off, but if she really is mentally ill, then there's no predicting what could happen. I feel safe though. Just a stomach feeling. Thanks for your kind words. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 125. As always, I can just ask you to check, please, that you're watching this on my channel, which is Hellfreezer. That is the name of the channel, nothing else. I have no other channels, I'm not affiliated with any other channels. Okay, with that, let's move on. I had one of those recording sessions that turned out to be longer than I expected. Thought to myself, okay, I'll do this story, that story, and I'll use that one because that's a little longer. That should give me a decent length video. And they all turned out to be pretty lengthy as it happens. But you know what? With some things on YouTube, longer videos aren't generally as well received. But thankfully, when you're a narrator, longer videos are generally more appreciated. Although there are still people who prefer the shorter ones. And I will try to put out some fairy tales or something down the line. I haven't forgotten about them. I certainly haven't abandoned them because I enjoy those also. And I will try to get things like that out here and there. You know, just a little bit there now and again. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to leave you for now because I'm getting kind of hungry and I need to eat. So until next time, thank you very much for listening and take very good care of yourselves.